I think they're developers. Yeah, it's, what's his name?
How did Mrs.
Then there's a hope of getting out of here tonight. We will get out of here, one way or the other.
When you spoke with her verbally?
Okay. Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees, regular meeting for Tuesday, September 27th, 2022 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart.
Here.
Trustee Monahan.
Here.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Trustee Buckley.
Here.
Clerk Forba here. Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Here.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
All present, we have a quorum.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Let's see. How about Chief James Nightel?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Item C is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Tuesday, September 27, 2022, and also that we have received a notice of intent to file a petition by Mr. Patrick Aurelia, and I move also that this is included in and attached to the minutes for tonight.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Forva with, as amended. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Stewart. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, item D is approval of the consent agenda. Comments, questions, concerns?
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda for Tuesday, September 27th, 2022.
Motion's made by Clerk Forva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, public comment. I would respectfully request that if you are here tonight on the Northridge housing project, that we would hold off on any comments or questions until we get to that part in the agenda. But however, there will be two opportunities for public comment on any other matter right now. And then again, at the end of the meeting, we just ask that you stick to your comments to 3 minutes. So, sure, come on down.
Yep.
You got to come over here.
Just speak right into here.
Thanks. My name is Judith Washburn, and I live on Ridge Road, Territorial. I'm very concerned about all the trucks that are coming down Ridge Road. I mean, it is hundreds of the two tractors, and they go very, very fast. And I don't think that, I used to be that the police would be there to give them tickets and stuff. Well, now it's just a free-for-all. They're just having a grand time.
Well, the police are out there quite a bit, and Chief Nightel can talk to that as well. As we know, I-275 is under massive reconstruction right now, and there are other housing projects going on in Canton Township as well, and other road projects that are happening in Canton Township, and here too. So right now, we are just seeing a dramatic increase in truck traffic because of all of the construction
All right,
projects.
so then I can be assured that when the roads get back in, that there won't be that many trucks, that somebody will be monitoring it?
We
I mean, that
monitor
road
it.
just got paved and it'll be a wreck.
We
It'll be a
monitor
mess.
it all the time, Chief.
I never see you, I'm sorry.
I'll tell you, I live there. I'm with you. I live right there, Ridge and North Territorial. I have the same complaint, and I don't see the cops' presence like I used to.
No, I don't either.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And, ma'am, I would love to follow up with you after this. We've met with several of the residents in the area. We have increased patrols. We will continue to do that. We have had complaints along the same issues. As Mr.
Okay.
Heisey had mentioned, we are seeing an increase due to some of the construction with on the freeway, so that
Okay,
has caused
great.
additional
Well, thank you
issues.
very much
So
for
are-
hearing my complaint.
Are trucks permitted to use Ridge, or are they not permitted to use Ridge?
They can use Ridge.
So
'Cause
what do you
they're
ticket?
gonna chew it up again. I mean, they
Speeding.
just finished.
Oh, it's speeding, and what about weight?
Well,
Are they able to go down North Territorial?
Yes.
Okay.
and we have put in requests with Wayne County as well as the state police for additional assistance with weighmasters
Right.
that can specifically weigh the trucks to see if they're overweight, things like that, and make sure that they have all the proper instruments for a truck.
How do they do that?
So,
They weigh 'em out in
so
the field?
Waymaster, we don't have that program anymore
No,
in Plymouth Township?
no.
Or at one time, years ago, we did.
Many years ago, we
Right.
did, yeah.
So we have to rely on the county or the state?
Correct.
Yes.
Both?
Yes.
And is Beck Road still being paved right now?
No, it's done.
It's done?
I went on it today.
Beck Road was closed for a day or two last week.
That was relating more to the intersection work. There's no paving on Beck that I'm aware of. North of Ann Arbor Road, no.
Oh,
No.
so the intersection at Ann Arbor Road and Beck was what was causing the
Yeah.
closing at Ann Arbor Trail?
Right. Because MDOT is resurfacing Ann Arbor Road between Canton Center and Napier. And then they're expanding the intersection at Beck and Ann Arbor Road, and they're installing left-hand turn signals and other improvements.
So the issue is speeding, not just trucks. Well, my judgment is, I don't think we're gonna be able to stop trucks, but we used to stop trucks years ago from going down county roads. That's unusual.
Not when I was here.
Unless we had a Waymaster.
Okay. maybe
Or
we
there's
had a
an
way-
obvious axle, issue or something like that, or,
So my point is, the trucks probably aren't gonna go away for a while because of construction, and they're allowed there.
so.
I'm never aware that we restricted trucks on county roads.
No, you can't.
You can't.
I mean, you can intercept the truck if they're doing something wrong, but they're allowed on the county roads. Those are qualified county roads for truck traffic. And the problem is we've got a lot of road work going on in both Plymouth Township and Canton Township.
Well, I would just question,
So you live there, right?
well, I do, I would just question the weight of the trucks, because you're absolutely right. It's just one thing about the trucks, but these are double.
Double
tandem,
bottom.
Double bottom trucks.
They
They're
distribute
trying
the
to
weight
speed
better.
up the hill to get down. And
if you did
it's,
do that,
it's
you'd
an
have more
interesting
trucks.
thing, and listen, I mean, if I had to deal with it, I have to deal with it, but I'm thinking the road's going to be all torn up too. There's a reason why we have weight limits, and if they're not enforced, and by the way, that brings in a lot of revenue for the township.
Actually, not
Overweight-
anymore. That
overweight
revenue
trucks.
goes,
Yes, it
by
does.
state law, that
By state
revenue
law.
now goes to the library system.
Yeah,
The library system.
Yes.
yes,
That goes back 10 years or more.
or more, yeah.
Well, I was a prosecutor a lot longer than that, so that's too bad.
Yeah, goes to the libraries. And they pay it. And they just pay it.
More on
It's part
Ridge?
of
Yeah,
doing
they do
business.
pay it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Gentleman in the back.
My name is Lou Foresi. I live in the Fox Point subdivision. And I just wanted to give an attaboy to the Board of Trustees and the work that you're doing with the trees. The tree program, this is the third year that we've gotten trees in our subdivision. And it helps our subdivision, and keep up the good work.
All righty, well,
Thank
thank
you.
you very
What
much.
is your subdivision again?
Fox Hill. Fox Point.
Fox Point.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on then to item F1. This is the 2022 Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Program. Jeremy and Patrick Felrath is here as well. So Jeremy, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, no problem. So this is our third year of the CIPP program. The successful bidder in this case is the same contractor we had this year. There's 9 locations throughout the township, pretty much all over the township, based on scoring that we had back from a previous SAW grant. Prices are good. They were all within, I think we get 3 bids. They were all within 7% of each other.
Prices are up or down from the last contract?
Almost fairly stable compared to last year, because there's a little bit more work than last year.
So how long does, refresh my memory, how does this process work? The CIPP process?
As far as like the planning,
No, the technology.
Oh, okay. So essentially what it boils down to is it's a resin impregnated liner, and they can either fill it up with water, steam, and steam cure it, or they can UV cure it. And essentially it becomes a hard liner on the inside of the existing pipe, so it solidifies it structurally.
How long do they typically last for?
Long time, it's 30-plus year design life.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Stewart, you want to make a motion?
Ready to read?
Okay.
So it is your recommendation, Mr. Schrott. I move to award the contract for 2022 sanitary sewer lining to Instaform Technologies USA LLC in the amount of $262,011.20.
Motion made by trustee Stewart, seconded by treasurer Dorchevitz. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heising.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item F2 is the emergency as-needed water main repair services contract. And this will be Patrick?
Yeah, so this is just Patrick and I put this together last year. He utilized it for the entire year. It was just a one-year contract. So we put out another contract for a 1 year with 2 renewals of 1 year beyond that.
This is the carryover company from Auburn Hills, right?
Yeah, we put it out for bids again, so we got the same 2 bidders as the last time, and the results were essentially identical. There were a couple changes to the pay items and some more stringent language on how long it takes for them to get there and make these calls, but it's good pricing again.
So how many times did you use this service in the last year?
Within the last year, we used them at least a half a dozen times.
And where do you make the judgment of whether we do it ourselves or we have an outside contractor do the work?
For these types of projects, we need an outside contractor to perform them. We don't have the resources to remove large pavement, to dig deeper. We don't have the equipment. They're large-scale type equipment, and it takes at least 2 crews.
They do it all the time.
So, yes, so these are, we use this predominantly for large water main breaks. We don't typically use them to make water taps, service taps. These are large water mains, or any type of large project where we do need outside assistance.
And they have the road paving equipment to restore the road surface?
Yes, it's a unit price contract, so they do have pavement restoration as an item in there. So they do have the equipment to restore and to remove concrete.
Okay, any other questions for Patrick?
Go ahead, John.
Mr. Stewart?
I move to award the contract for emergency as-needed water main repair services to Superior Excavating, Inc., based on their unit price bid submitted as August 30th, 2022.
Motion's made by trustee Stewart. Is there a second? Seconded by treasurer Dorchevitz. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heising.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz.
Yeah.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Motion carries.
Okay. Item F3 is authorization for the supervisor to sign the contract with GFL for residential and township facilities waste removal. This would authorize me to sign the contract based on the bid forms that were submitted by GFL and all the other documentation that they submitted to us back during the bid process, the interview process, and the selection process. And Kevin Bennett has been charged with doing the final tweaks and everything with the contract, and he worked with the GFL. I don't know if they were attorneys or not, but you were working with them to finalize the contract, and everything meets with your approval.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything here on force majeure or if they go bankrupt, maybe something's in there on bankruptcy, or they somehow can't pick up the trash, can't perform.
Correct.
What
That is
our
all,
remedy?
that is all in the RFP, which is incorporated into the contract, which you guys already have a copy of that RFP. Kevin, do you want to embellish that at all?
Yeah, if you look at paragraph 6 of the agreement, it provides that the contract bid form contained only an example performance bond and not an actual performance bond. That provision provides that the contract documents are not binding upon the township unless and until the contractor furnishes a performance bond acceptable to the township. The purpose of the performance bond is to ensure that the contractor will perform under the contract. If the contractor fails to perform, then the township would make a claim on the performance bond to recover any money that the township lost by hiring an emergency trash collector. That did happen in another community that I represent, maybe 10 years ago, and we made a claim on the performance bond and we collected.
So there is a backup. You could find someone to pick up trash if they,
I hate to think about that scenario, but I am sure that there would be another
because
vendor.
that would be kind of catastrophic.
Yeah, that would be.
Yes.
To have GFL go under or something like that. But there's.
Or let's say they had a big fire and it destroyed
Yeah.
half their trucks or.
There's at least 2 other vendors that I know are out there who would like our work, so I'm sure we would call them.
All right, so you feel secure. Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, motion. I'll give you a motion.
Okay.
I move that the board adopt Resolution 2022-09-27-60 to authorize the township supervisor to sign the proposed contract with GFL for collection and disposal of residential solid waste, collection of residential recyclables and compostables, for collection of disposal of solid waste, including street sweeping debris, and recyclables from township-owned facilities.
Okay, motion's made by trustee Kermy. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by trustee Monahan. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Motion carries.
Okay.
All right. That brings us to item F4. This is the conditional rezoning for the Plymouth Ridge residential subdivision. I think what we'll do tonight is let's start with our planner, Laura Haw, to give us an update on where we are as of tonight with this project, what happened at the Planning Commission, and then I'd like to open it up for board comments. I know I have some preliminary comments just similar to what I did back in June of last year. So Laura, if you would like to kick us off.
Thank you. Evening, trustees. The application before you this evening is a conditional rezoning. So this is a map amendment to the zoning map of the township, which changes the zoning designation. It is special in the fact that it is a conditional rezoning, which means that the applicant is voluntarily offering conditions to be placed upon that rezoning. And the township cannot add to that list of voluntary conditions per state statute. So the applicant is offering 3 conditions as part of this process. They're offering that the use would be solely restricted to detached single-family residences. They're offering that the maximum number of lots permitted would be 36. And they're offering the minimum of a 50-foot preservation easement provided along the south and west property boundaries. The petition, or the applicant previously submitted a petition in 2021 for the same rezoning from the R1E residential district to the R1H residential district. Those are both single-family residential districts, which was considered by the Planning Commission, who recommended denial to this body, the Board of Trustees, and this body denied the application in June of last year, and the file was closed. And this proposal was for 42 detached single-family lots. So on packet packet page 44, there is a table that compares that plan to the current proposal for your reference. But the current proposal that is really under consideration is the August 2022 plan, which is for 36 lots. The Planning Commission held their public hearing in August, where they recommended denial of the proposal to the Board of Trustees. And again, as a conditional rezoning, there are several options in front of you this evening. One would be to approve the conditional rezoning, deny the conditional rezoning, to rescind the application back to the Planning Commission for further deliberation, or to table the application. However, the Township Board cannot impose additional conditions on this application. The applicant could still voluntarily offer conditions if they so wished, in addition to the 3 that they've already offered. The meeting minutes have been provided in your packet. Those are draft meeting minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of October 17th. And there is another letter this evening for the record to be incorporated regarding public comment. We have 2 motions in your packet if you're ready to take action on this item. One is for a recommendation of, or a motion of approval, and the other is for denial. Since this is a conditional rezoning, this is not a site plan. Should this project move forward with approval of a rezoning, the applicant would still have to go through the cluster housing process. This does not convey approval of a site plan for this. There would be many more meetings and months and legwork involved by the applicant. Thank you.
At the Planning Commission meeting, Laura, what was your professional recommendation on this proposal?
Our recommendation was approval of the conditional rezoning to the Board of Trustees. Our findings are still listed in our report. I believe that starts on packet page 66.
Okay. All right. At this time, I'd like to just reiterate some statements that I made back in June of 2021. Some of you have heard this before. It's a little modified, but the essence has not changed. As I said back in 2021, with the last Suave plan, I believe the developers have submitted the best plan possible for this site for everyone concerned. To the best of my knowledge, they have complied with most, if not all, of the requirements put forth by our planner and Wayne County and the residents. Most importantly, the lots along the western and southern edges of the site plan are comparable in size to the adjacent existing homes, and the setbacks on those homes appear to be generous. The homes along the internal streets and Northridge Church are the smaller, denser lots, but for the most part, they will be facing each other and/or the interior street and church property. The developer is proposing 36 units, down from 6 from the 42 units proposed last year, and down 36 from the 72 units proposed by Grand Sakwa a few years ago. Most of these units are of the smaller variety that appeal to the empty nesters who want to stay in the Plymouth community, and we do need more housing like this. A little background is now in order, which I mentioned last year, and I need to reiterate tonight. In 2015, Northridge Church purchased the property at issue. They developed plans for a parking lot with 2 additional driveways onto Ridge Road, which the neighbors to the east objected to. I met with these residents while I was a candidate for supervisor in 2016. In 2017, I denied Northridge Church's request to build this parking lot, as I believed it would be in violation of the more than 25-year-old federal consent order between Northridge Church and the Plymouth Township, which limited them to 2 access points on Ridge Road. They were represented by an attorney, Mr. Amon, who we're all familiar with. I went to Mr. Amon and said that I felt that they were in violation, and they did not pursue the parking lot. My second concern is more of a legal nature. As I have outlined, if this latest plan for this site is denied, will Northridge again have a legal argument under the categorical or regulatory taking analysis of the Fifth Amendment? The U.S. Supreme Court has held that a categorical taking occurs where a regulation denies all economically beneficial or productive use of land. The court has also stated that if regulation goes too far, it will be recognized as a taking. A regulatory taking occurs when a government regulation limits the use of private property to such a degree that it effectively deprives the property of value. If the current project is rejected, Northridge will have been denied use of their land 4 times in the last 5 years. Would this be a good basis for litigation? We've heard a lot about private property rights over the last few years on this board. What property rights does Northridge have to make the highest and best use of their land? Also, and perhaps most importantly, we've been approving cluster housing and rezoning plans for years. Most recently, the Purcell site, Margate, Verona Park, the Woods, and at least 30 more for at least the past 10 years. The precedent is certainly in Northridge's favor. We only have to look most recently to the Margate housing development. In 2021, the Margate project was approved by this board on surplus land belonging to a church. The same fact pattern as this. How is Margate any different from the matter before us? This was for 35 homes that were more densely packed on a much smaller piece of land. I know anyone can sue anyone anytime for any reason, but I have a fiduciary duty to make sure Plymouth Township doesn't buy itself a lawsuit. We may be equally exposed to a federal lawsuit under the existing consent decree by Northridge Church or under existing federal statutes. I'm referring specifically to RLUIPA, which is the Religious Liberty Protection Act. In the end, I believe this is the best plan possible for the site, one that respects the immediate neighbors, allows Northridge a fair use of their property, and prevents more intrusive alternatives. It's also the most likely scenario that will not result in litigation. I'm looking for solutions tonight. If we want to reject this, I suppose we can reject it, but I think we need to take it to the next step, take it back to the Planning Commission for the cluster housing review, for site plan review. I've had planning commissioners come to me in the last couple weeks, and they have said that they would have agreed to this project if it wasn't for some of the design elements, preliminary design elements that they saw in those original plans. Okay, now.
I mean architecture?
Yeah.
You mean this?
Yeah, a specific, I don't know if those specific photos, but
Okay.
the concern that came up a couple times was about the location of the garages, I believe, on some of the smaller units. And
Right.
if that could be altered or amended in some way, that they would have been more amenable to an approval. I think this is a good compromise, and as you can see by the lots here, it's the smaller units. It's the smaller units that are on the church side, or they're facing each other. It's the larger units with the larger lots that are facing the neighborhood, and those lots are comparable in size to the adjoining houses. So for those reasons, I would recommend, I'm not gonna, it's not a hill I'm gonna die on tonight, but I would recommend approval personally, for the reasons I've stated. I think it just sends it to the next level in the Planning Commission. Then I would implore the planning commissioners to really sharpen their pencils and work with the developer. And I'm telling the developer too, you know, you've got one more shot here to make this work. And maybe you don't want to, maybe you want to just walk away at this point, but I think we've worked out a good compromise here, and if we can make it a little better, then let's do that at the next level of the Planning Commission. And you're okay with that, Laura? I mean, you're the one who's going to have to deal with that, so.
They would be following the process in the ordinance.
Okay.
So Laura, could you, for the benefit of the board here, describe what limitations the Planning Commission would have on oversight of the plan, given the fact that it's a cluster housing option? So what could the Planning Commission do in terms of steering this project, and what could the Planning Commission not do?
Certainly. So as a cluster housing option, there could be changes to the general layout of this plan. I think that has already happened in many respects since the Planning Commission looked at this in March of 2021. But that would be further refined. So I know there was a lot of discussion about the side-loaded garages. that would be something that could be explored with this. The facade materials, certainly, getting into the landscaping and tree preservation, those elements.
But not the layout, right?
The architecture, you mean, or the,
The layout, like the roads?
what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Number of units.
the map.
It looks like they're it's on page 2, what their findings were based their denial on.
No, he's talking about what going
Going
forward,
forward.
Oh,
not this.
If we
Okay.
approved it, what could they do, is what was your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, I mean, is the planning commission limited to control over finished materials? Or does the planning commission, at some point, because it's a cluster housing option, planning commission only has so much ability to steer the outcome of this project, right? And that's the question. Where does its authority begin and end when it comes to changes to this plan?
Well, as part of the cluster housing process, the applicant would need to demonstrate why this would be an eligible site for cluster housing. So, tree survey, some of the lots may change, or the configuration of those in order to preserve natural features or wetlands on site. So I wouldn't say that these are in stone. The applicant is offering 36 lots, a maximum. So somehow they would be able to do that on this site.
But let's cut right to the chase. What we want to know is, can we dictate the style of the building, which usually in a PUD, this is not a PUD, in other words, ranch or 2-story, 5-story, whatever, and the garage entrance. With a cluster housing, can you do that?
Yes,
Even though it's not a PUD?
correct.
All right. There are no significant trees on this property. It's substantially scrub.
It really is.
And there's no geographically cool things on this property. So,
A swamp,
it's not a swamp.
a little,
It's kind of high ground.
yeah.
let's hope not.
Yeah, it's kind of high ground.
Well, that's why they got the detention.
Okay.
Well, that's because they have to dig it out.
Yeah.
They're going to use this church detention pond over here.
So Laura, on the pictures that are provided here, there's 11 pictures. I'm only seeing one with a front entrance. But the concern is that they're all front entrance?
The concern is that the 70-foot lots, which are along the northern part there, by the Northridge parking lot themselves, yes,
Part there.
yes, that those 70-foot lots do not allow enough room for a side-loaded garage.
It's not big enough. You can't, there's no turn radius.
Correct. So the other lots would, which is what the applicant is showing. These architectural drawings that they've provided are very preliminary. They're not tied to this development. That would have to be fleshed out with the cluster, or with the cluster housing option. This is an example of what they're looking to do.
But then again, Laura, sorry, I can't turn my mic on here. Playing devil's advocate, though, if we're talking about garage doors, and we have a lot of housing developments in the township that are very garage
They're front-loaded.
dominant, garage dominant.
Yes.
Okay, Jerry and I, we knock on doors every weekend. We go to these houses, and we don't knock on the doors except that it's an election year.
People call the cops?
Sometimes. But, we have a lot of houses that look like that. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate here because if that's predominantly on this side, if it's these homes, these are the people across the street who are going to have to look at that. I just don't know, if I'm going down Ridge Road, at posted speed, and I don't think I'm going to be looking down that street to look at everybody's garage door. I don't get it.
Laura, one of the findings they had, potential negative impact on the development from the consent judgment as related to the retention pond. What does that mean, if you know?
Yes, so that was one of the planning commission findings. That was not one of McKenna's findings.
I think that was more of a question than a finding.
It was a question.
Yeah, because there was no expertise in the room to make that that judgment. The consent judgment was pre-Kevin.
So the retention pond here, though, is part of the consent agreement, and I believe that's going to be utilized by the development. They're going to dump their
Yeah,
stormwater into that pond.
So what is the
question
meaning
was-
of this comment in the minutes?
The question was, does it potentially put a risk to the terms of the consent judgment? Does it reopen it? Does it create a reopener? I don't know. I'm not qualified.
Yeah,
to
boy,
make
I
that
don't know.
The
I don't think
seller,
so.
who's the church, would be eager to accommodate it.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, we all
They
agree
have a
to
huge
that.
incentive.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
They
That's-
benefit, they
it was-
gotta
benefit.
make
it was a
sure that they
question.
would do it,
wasn't
though.
It wasn't a finding, it was a question.
Well, it's,
Question.
well, it says based on the following findings, I'm just
It was a
reading their words.
question, I was there.
I was there.
Okay, that's
I
okay,
go to
I'm
all
just,
the meetings.
I'm just reading here, that's all. It's
I
okay.
attend all the meetings.
But
okay.
anyway, so if we look at this parcel, though, remember, Northridge acquired this parcel so that they could build a parking lot and give themselves 2 more exits onto Ridge Road. I'm the one who stopped that because I could see it was an end around the consent agreement. And I'm not, it's over with now, so I'm not angry with anybody. I just want, we are concerned, though, now about what Northridge can legitimately do with that property, and this
Do
seems
they
to be.
have parking concerns there?
No,
It seems like
was
they have
traffic.
adequate parking.
It was, the church allegedly had parking concerns. I did not ask for a parking study or anything like that. They did not put up much of a fight when this project was shut down. Where we were getting the opposition was to the neighbors to the east. This is the east side over here, where my pointer is. They were very concerned that traffic was going to come through their neighborhood to connect up with this new parking lot that would have been here. That was a major concern.
It was.
Well, and the consent agreement had a no right turn provision onto southbound Ridge.
Did.
Never was enforced. Our police chief said he couldn't enforce it. I think the sign is probably removed by now.
It was, well, you got to remember when the consent agreement was put into place, Ridge Road was a dirt road. So that was part of the reason for the no right turn.
No.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm wrong on that? It predates me. I moved in after that.
I was
but I
here,
was always told
And it
that.
was traffic.
Okay, I stand corrected.
So, okay,
So let's get back to go back to Chuck.
well, getting back to the cluster housing. I want the developer to talk, I realize we can't do contract zoning, but if we're going to get this optimized, we've got to talk with the developer and the builder about architecture, about style. For example, I keep saying, I hear it regularly from residents, they want to downsize from a multi-story house, smaller, they want to stay in Plymouth. Well, there's really aren't too many affordable places to go to because they want a single-story ranch-style house. Almost all of the photographs in here are multi-story. So I would lean towards helping this along if we could get a commitment that we would have ranch style and the architect, but I don't know how to make that happen without violating the zoning law.
So Laura, are these homes here, are those ranch or are they double story or hybrid?
Well, so right now, like that isn't confirmed on their plan. However, I think the square footage of the buildable envelope that you see would likely make those 2-story, but that's really up to the applicant to present at a future date.
The lot itself is only a quarter acre, I think, right? It was 70 by, what is it, 70 by 100?
Mm-hmm.
That's 7,000 feet. That's only
By 150.
150, that's 11,000 feet. That's a quarter acre.
And what we've been told is a lot of the empty nesters are looking for either everything on one floor or maybe most everything on one floor, and then the second floor might be a half a floor or just for either guest bedroom or storage
Cape Cod,
or,
kind of.
yeah,
A
First
bonus
floor
room.
master.
first floor master, everything on the first floor.
It'd be hard to do with that size a lot, though.
Hard to do at Cape Cod.
No, probably a first floor master, I don't know, just, it's more difficult.
I keep coming back to that Pine Way Court off of Gilbert
No,
Street.
you're right. No,
You're right,
you're
yeah.
right.
We know it's doable. It's been, it was done 20 5 years ago.
What are you talking about?
And those had daylight basements or walkout basements where we put it, well, I was part of that development. And we put a bedroom downstairs and a bathroom.
It
So you had two bedrooms up and one bedroom down.
It overlooks Heinz Drive.
Right.
Small subdivision.
The applicant could offer to do a percentage of the homes as ranch style. That's a common practice.
They would have to offer it. We can't ask for it.
Correct.
But in the cluster housing, when they come for the cluster housing approval, can you ask for it then?
Mm-hmm.
The planning commission can ask for that.
Correct. Because
There was
a mix of,
something- Go ahead.
This is a preliminary approval.
Yeah.
There was something about the planning commission that made them not want to approve this. In fact, generally, the planning consultant has approved or recommended higher density for a few years now, and the planning commission has gone along with them. This time they didn't. So what's going, you were there, Bob, let's have a little background on this. What was the trigger points?
I think it came down to this was the second time. This one, in my opinion, this plan was a pretty substantial improvement over the previous one. But it came down to I think the 70-foot lots on that side, with the developer indicating that it wasn't economically viable to do a project unless they were able to do those smaller lots and those smaller homes. And I think it was a lot of, and I can't really speak for others other than what people, comments they made. I can't speak for their emotions, certainly. But the side entry garages was an issue, and quite frankly, public blowback is an issue as well. There's pretty substantial pushback from the surrounding neighbors, and I think that was weighed on it. It wasn't outcome determinative.
So the surrounding neighbors want it developed into essentially 1 acre lots?
Yeah, they want, I don't want to say they, because I don't speak for everybody, but those that have come forward and spoken have indicated that they were there first in terms of zoning, and the rezoning is, not appropriate.
So under the current zoning, how many houses could be built there?
I think
When you
it's
had- when you-
20,
Was it 27?
Well, if you divide it by the number of acres, but you have to put the roads in.
yes, under the current zoning district, under conventional lots with the infrastructure for roads, 17.
Okay, so you have 10
17
more.
with the roads? No, 20 more than twice.
19.
Oh, that's right.
So
We're going
what's
from
the number?
17 to 36.
I thought it was 23 at one time.
Well, so it's 17 under conventional zoning, like if I just wanted to go out there today and build a subdivision
Oh, right.
legally. If I wanted to come to the township and ask for a cluster housing option
Right.
with the current zoning, that's 23 lots.
Right, and cluster, right, that's what it was.
Well, the March 2021 design had essentially a through road or a loop road, correct?
It did.
It did, yes.
So this will substantially reduce traffic.
Yes.
Although the neighbors in Plymouth
gonna have
Commons,
this-
it's Plymouth Commons, right? Is that the subdivision?
You're still gonna have the same number of cars, they're
Right.
just gonna be going down 2 streets instead of 1.
Ridge Road will be affected equally.
Right.
I don't know about Fox Point.
It's going to be a different, less intensive residential traffic.
I mean,
given the
you're not
clientele.
talking about a lot of cars,
You're not.
36 houses, it's not a lot of cars.
I suspect you're going to have a lot of
Yeah.
snowbirds, too.
Well, nobody made the church buy the property. We got to say that from a.
No,
No, but,
so-
but even so, even if they didn't, the person who owned it before then may want to do something. And so.
I think that church owned it.
Yeah,
That church, that's what I'm saying.
Church of Latter-day Saints.
So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter who owns it now. I think the issue is more what the supervisor was talking about, is that the changes in the design, even though it's two different builders now, has changed, and they lowered the density. And I think that seeing how we've allowed another church to have cluster housing and to be even more dense, that you're going to run into a liability situation here that I think the township will not be happy with. So not only do you have a taking, but undue alienation of the transfer of property. You have some real serious, and I'm not giving a legal opinion, I'm just telling you, you have serious issues here where they have come to the table and made changes that are substantial. And this is not unlike anything else we've done. And so I think that I'm in agreement with the supervisor that we're going to hang ourselves out here sooner or later.
Well, let's not keep setting us up for it, I mean, but.
Well, that's the reality.
Well,
though.
I mean, but.
I'm not giving another attorney that they may hire or not hire any information that they don't already
Yeah,
have.
they're aware.
Well, why don't we hear from the residents and the developer?
Well, let's start with the developer. Do you guys have anything you want to come forward and just briefly give us an update or tell us any thoughts that you may have in light of what you've heard tonight?
Ray Cousineau, representing Leo Sauve, who's in the audience this evening. He's the applicant. Interesting discussion. I didn't anticipate any of this.
Didn't? Get the microphone closer to your.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I can hear myself better now.
You are,
Ray Cousineau. Ray Cousineau.
You're an attorney or you're a?
No, I'm just a
consultant?
regular guy.
No.
I'm a developer.
Right. That's even better.
The conditional rezoning agreement that we offered stipulated that we would build this plan, subject to minor modifications. I've talked to Mr. Sauve, and he's adamant about the lot count in terms of density, in terms of what we need to make this thing work. But he's also willing to take a look at developing a product that might fit on the smaller lots that could accommodate a side entry garage. And that could go hand in hand with perhaps some senior type housing or transitional housing for that type of market. So we would be willing to look at that, but I think fundamentally, we're looking at 36 lots. We could make some adjustments, perhaps in the lot widths. For example, if we modified some of the lots, in that area, took some dimension away from those lots and spread it around the lots adjacent to the church property, that could help us. We might need some assistance with side yard setbacks if we're not able to do that. Because I think the side yards are 10 foot on a 70-foot lot, so that leaves you with a 50-foot wide building envelope. We have to explore, can we build a 50-foot wide product with a side entry garage? That's tough to do. I've never done it personally, but Mr. Sauve thinks that he might be able to develop a product for that. So we would be willing to look at that. But I think fundamentally, we came to this meeting this evening, I guess with the assumption that one way or another, we were going to be approved or denied our current proposal, which is the rezoning application tied to this site plan. Now, I think what I'm hearing is a little different discussion. I think what you're saying is that you may consider approving our proposal this evening, subject to modifications to the plan at the planning commission level. And if I'm not mistaken, the cluster option goes to the planning commission only. It does not come to the township board, or does it? Does? Oh, okay. So it's a two-stage process. Okay. So I guess.
So what assurances or leverage will we have if we did this today? Because leverage is what your business is all about. Because I'm familiar with Mr. Sauve's leveraging us and talking about schools and all that, which I think he made a mistake by doing that. But anyway, that's over the dam now. So leverage to get enough to make everyone as satisfied as possible. Residents, the developer, and Plymouth Township, and Northridge Church.
That's a tough equation. I think that's to satisfy everybody.
Well, you're not going to get, no, not everybody's going to be 100% satisfied.
Right.
But for example, getting more, what I would call empty nester, senior citizen, one floor type functioning residents, which all of the recent approvals for these high density housing, and I've voted against all of them, were not friendly for seniors who want to downsize. They were all multi-story. In fact, one of them was almost 4 stories high when you counted the garage. So that isn't, for some reason, the builders don't think there's a market need for it. You guys are smarter than me, but just anecdotally, I hear it all the time. I'd like to sell my house, but I don't know where to go. I want to stay in Plymouth. I have a 3,000, 3,500 square foot house. I'd like to go to 1,500 or 2,000 where I don't have steps. Hear it all the time. But apparently you guys can't make a profit on that kind of a building, or you require really high density to do it. But so far, no one in Plymouth Township, other than Menard, has really stepped up to do it, and his price point is very high for most people. It's $600,000 to $800,000. So the price point for more people wants to be between probably $350,000 and $500,000 to do a downsize from my house that I raised my children in.
I think that's a fundamental issue when you talk about, when you talk about providing housing for the empty nesters or the seniors, is you're talking about downsizing, and that normally equates to a reduction in price, which affects our pro forma financially, as compared to a more traditional 2-story home on a 70-foot lot with a front entry garage. The price of that product will traditionally be higher than the senior product.
Right.
You just mentioned that there was a senior product somewhere where they're in the 6s?
Plus.
4s?
It's across from Pioneer Middle School on Ann Arbor Road.
He didn't start off that way, though. He was
Pardon
in
me?
the 500s at one time.
Okay. Was he able to sustain the 500s?
Heck no.
Well, obviously not.
Not, yeah, he's in the 4s. That's the problem.
He's up to probably 700,000 or 800,000.
Well, Verona Park is an example of the price points out of whack for those homes that they were proposing
They
originally.
never completed the project, right?
Well, they're still working on it, but the prices are out of whack with what the product that they originally wanted to build.
That's on Beck Road,
Yeah.
just south of North
What are the
Territory.
prices coming in at?
Like 700,000, 800,000.
They were 700,000, 800,000, and people were backing out. And then he's probably going to we've been in close contact. I don't want to go off track, but we've been in close contact with the Verona Park developer, and he's probably going to resubmit he's going to stay within the cluster housing option that we gave him, but he's going to come back with a different style of home, subject to everybody's approval, so don't sweat that.
The price is going to go up or down?
I think he's trying to drive his prices down by offering a smaller home comparable to what you've been talking about, Chuck. So, I think that the market is definitely there. And I'm, again, for the record, I'm not hung up on the front entry garage thing. I think it's not going to hurt, and it's not going to impact anybody other than the residents who are living there. When they look across the street, they'll see the garage of their neighbor across the street. I've got lots of subdivisions in the township that look just like
I
that.
have one.
So anyway, I mean, but yours, I know, you and I live in the same kind of house, but we're talking about much denser arrangements off of Napier, off of North Territorial, I could show you a bunch of them on a map.
I'm not sure what the hangup is
That
either
look
in
like
terms
that,
of
that look like that, so.
aesthetics.
I mean, it's an aesthetic issue, really, and I'm not, anyway.
Not hung up on it.
I'm not hung up on it at all. I mean, I could approve this whole thing
But
tonight,
it's inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhoods, that's the issue.
Well, then
Because
so
they
is.
have all side entry.
Yeah, well, then so is a lot of other,
But they're on 1 acre lots, right?
subdivisions that we've approved.
Not all.
I mean, look at the Menard project.
Let's talk about architecture. Brick. Does brick drive up the price of a home today versus using cementatious type siding?
Like a hardy plank?
Yeah, like
Yep.
hardy.
Yeah, masonry construction is traditionally more expensive than a hardy plank.
So is that an area where we can give a concession? Because I hear a lot of people don't like brick houses now. In fact, they're
Yeah,
painting.
our pro forma was based on selling homes on the small lots, probably in the mid to high fives, trying to keep it under 6 if we could. So if we're talking about reducing the size of the product and creating this empty nester type home, which in my mind should be 4 or less, to be a viable market for the empty nesters, because the last thing an empty nester wants to do is sell their 3,500 square foot home for $750,000 and then buy another downsized home for 500,000 or 600,000. You know, just to take advantage of a smaller home with a master bedroom on the first floor. They want to downsize everything.
So who is your ideal tenant that you're looking to put into these, as opposed to what what's being thrown out there?
All of the people to your left, we're the customer.
I'll give you some numbers. The lots adjacent to Plymouth Commons on the south and the west side of the property, we adjusted those lot sizes so that they were comparable to the Plymouth Commons lots in terms of width and area. And we figure that market is going to be 750 plus all day long.
Because these look quite large from what I'm seeing and very comparable to Fox Point.
The
ones that I'm seeing.
These areas here, Jennifer?
No, they're not.
These here?
Yeah.
Those are, but.
Yeah, those are
I'm not talking about that other side.
The other
There's
side
more
is
to the
not. I
project
mean, those
than
are
just that.
going to be a lot smaller.
What we did is this side, and along this perimeter here, we tried to adjust those lot sizes so anything abutting the Plymouth Commons property was comparable.
Right.
And then we also
It's really two
provided
projects.
I was gonna say, they're like
50-foot
two
wide
different.
preservation easement that is off the lots. The 42 lot plan that you saw in June had our lot lines going directly to the Plymouth Commons property line. So the lots extended all the way to the property line. Even though we said we would provide a easement, a preservation easement on the backside of the lots, that wasn't acceptable. So we said, we're gonna pull the lots back and create a preservation easement or a preservation area that is outside of the lots, and that would be an area of undisturbance.
That's the hashtag area here, the hash mark area?
Yes, sir. Yep.
But there's that, and then there's the backyard of this guy as well.
Correct.
And then there's the backyard of this guy as well.
Right.
And that hash area is not part of a lot.
Got it. Yeah, I know.
So who will mow that part? Who will take care of it?
That will be left in its current state.
Okay,
Be
so
undisturbed.
totally natural.
Yes, sir.
That'll be sporting.
So we were trying to, I guess, alleviate as many of the concerns as we could of the Plymouth Commons residents, even though they're not happy with this particular proposal. We tried to do the best that we could to protect their their property and buffer their property.
So let me ask you another question. These 3 lots, look at your map here. These lots, are those comparable to these smaller units?
bigger.
Or are these big units?
Those are all larger.
Okay.
And again, we put those lots here because it was abutting the
No,
Plymouth
I got
Commons.
that part, okay.
But that's an area that if we make some adjustments, we could take some dimension from those lots and try to spread it
Right.
amongst the other lots and
Yeah. So Laura Hall, let me ask you another question. A conditional rezoning, can we put a time limit on that? For example, 180 days. Either you come to an agreement with them to take it to the next level, or it dies, assuming that there's no agreement, no compromise.
I'm not
Can you
aware
put a
of,
time limit?
of being able to put a specific time limit on action for the consent judgment, or the conditional rezoning, excuse me. On packet page 50 of the packet, in the conditional rezoning agreement, it states that the developer has 2 years to
Yeah.
So it's
Expiration.
good,
act,
so
or
it's already good for 2 years.
yes, or it becomes null.
Got it.
So they have to bring the cluster housing option request within 2 years of tonight, if they get approved?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
In the event construction, so construction has to commence, which construction means building permit.
Oh, okay, that's a little more tight. 2 years to have construction started.
There is provisions in here for an extension as well,
Yeah, we can give a 1-year extension typically at a time.
for good showing.
Are you thinking to give us a, let's say, a more restricted limitation on the approval of the conditional rezoning, which would allow us to explore the cluster option and address some of these issues?
I would, again, speaking only for myself, I would recommend that we approve this, send it back to the planning commission, and then have you and the planning commission and the consultants try to work something out that would be similar to what we've talked about tonight. There's some concern about these front entry garages. I mean, that seems to be some outstanding issue. It's not my issue. I'm fine with it the way it looks right now. But if there's some way that we can work that out or modify it in some way, reduce the number, then take a look at it, see what you can do. If you can't, then I guess we don't have a deal.
Let me ask you a question, and it will show my ignorance of your profession. Why, if you made 30%, if you created 30% less lots, but you made the houses bigger on those lots, wouldn't your gross margins tie to that increased lot size and increased house size? So you're going to end up with the same, net operating income in that model.
Yeah, you're talking about gross sales, whether,
Yeah.
you go from 40 lots down to 30 lots, but the
Yeah.
30 lots are larger homes, more expensive,
And they
and the
have
numbers
higher-
balance
And
out.
they have higher gross margins.
Correct.
because There's more room in them.
Right. Our concern here is the church property, quite frankly, and the type of housing product that we think will be viable adjacent to that property. That's why we went to the smaller lots. If we thought that, then again, $700,000-800,000 home would be a good location where that would be adjacent to the church property in the parking lot, then we would have brought that proposal before you, but we don't see that.
So you see it as undesirable to be
get it.
butting
Less
against a
church.
parking lot?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely.
Even with,
Let's say, rather than undesirable, how about less desirable?
Empty nesters.
so even with buffering of landscaping and things like that, where you wouldn't actually see it.
Yeah, Laura, could you bring up the site plan again, if you could?
Well, this area has a high road noise issue. There's a lot of, that makes it undesirable right from the beginning, because there's a lot of road noise from M14.
You say road millage?
Road noise,
Oh, road noise.
tire noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's noisy.
Yeah, you see the proximity to the parking lot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And,
know
you
that
know,
parking
and
lot.
I know that this church is quite active. I don't attend it, but I.
So the last row there that
Yeah.
comes west
Yeah.
with the curve, the radius on it.
Right.
That's the church property. So the backyards are going to be looking into the
Church
the parking lot or
yeah.
the
Yeah.
pond.
Yeah.
And even in the greenbelt area, when you're separated from the parking area, you're still, your rear yard is exposed to that.
Yeah, well-
To that use, that parking lot, all the traffic and everything, so. Yeah.
Yeah, the traffic is, my family has attended this church for over 20 years. The parking lot is busy during church services. And it's empty the rest of the week.
Well, Wednesdays.
And I don't know if I had a point in there somewhere, but I thought I did.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But, we have similar facilities like that already. The Beaver Creek, we talked about Beaver Creek a couple weeks ago. That's right on Ann Arbor Road. And that's a very tight, dense housing arrangement with front garages. And those homes are connected practically, right?
Beaver Creek.
Yeah, I just want to offer a comment. There's been discussion about potential litigation on this. I've been involved in this project for over a year now, and every time that I've met with city staff, Laura, whatever, I never heard anyone mention or threaten litigation with respect to our proposal and moving forward. I thought we always were trying to work in a cooperative
Our,
effort.
our issue is not with you. Our issue is with Northridge.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And they have lawyers and they know what they're doing.
Okay, yeah.
Well, maybe
I
Northridge,
had that impression.
And no one on this board is threatening litigation.
No, I
Against
know
you, and
that.
we're
No,
not.
I just wanted you to understand from our side, from the Solvay side.
well, considering what's going on, maybe Northridge should adjust the selling price to make everybody win.
Well, we've had that discussion with them, and they're not moving.
Well, we don't want to get in the middle of that.
So we're not going to,
It's a little too creative.
Well, they're putting us, Northridge Church is putting us in the middle of it.
Well, we've been in the middle of it.
They have a right to sell the property for what they want.
This is a very challenging piece. We're talking about storm drainage and using their detention basin. We've estimated that we're going to spend at least $250,000 probably reconfiguring that basin to accommodate their existing drainage and our new drainage. And there's issues with the outlet of that basin, so we've got a lot of mechanical issues here that translate into money and affects our pro forma.
Okay, well, I think we're getting into their business affairs. John?
Mr. Supervisor, in your opening comments, I did hear you say that you would consider the option of remanding this to the Planning Commission one more time. I do not want to approve something without a majority vote from the Planning Commission. A majority vote from the Planning Commission. I believe in delicate compromise and consensus. We've come a long way, and I get a latent frustration out from a year ago when we had a representative here who lived in Livonia, and he came here and he said, 42 units, or we're going to give you a charter school. That's my threat, take it or leave it.
That wasn't me.
No, that was not you. No, it was not you. You're much too smarter for that. You're much too seasoned. And let me introduce you to Mr. Boyd and Mr. Warmbier. I think it's offensive that you have not communicated with them. And I think it's offensive to them, and I take offense for that. I want to promote communication. I'm a practicing attorney and a 70-year-old. I've been in Wayne County courts for 45 years. Less than 5% of all civil cases go to trial. So we negotiate, we negotiate, we negotiate, and we negotiate. October 19th is the next date of the Planning Commission. I think if you sit down and hammer this out, I've been told many times, go into that conference room, counselor, and come out with a settlement, or I'm going to rule against you. You know what happens? And come out with a settlement, or I'm going to rule against you. You know what happens? Everybody gets religion. All practicing attorneys, all real lawyers who go to court and have to face that man or woman with a black robe. Okay? So this is what I am suggesting, that you talk to those two gentlemen. I don't know the other names of the people who are here tonight.
Mr. Boyd is on
representing. Excuse me, let me
Mr. Boyd
finish.
is on the Planning Commission.
Let me
You're saying
finish.
that he hasn't been talked to.
He is on, well,
He made the decisions. Come on.
please
John.
don't interrupt me. I would like to ask you to talk with them, at least Mr. Warmbier and Mr. Boyd. He's a colleague my age, Mr. Boyd, who's on the Planning Commission, a very reasonable guy. And I would like to see if we could have some compromises here and come back to us. You get a majority vote on the Planning Commission, and I guess I'll stipulate to my yes vote. I'm not a court of appeals. And the Board of Trustees has been used and manipulated as a court of appeals. You're coming to us, and there's a piece of paper here that says there was almost unanimous denial from the Planning Commission.
Well, I guess
But you seem like a very seasoned, reasonable man, and I'll bet you're going to walk out of here and you're going to say hello to Tim Boyd, and you're going to say hello to Mike Warmbier. Is that right?
Sure.
Sure.
I'd be more than happy to have a discussion with anybody with respect
Well,
to
they're
that.
very, very bright, informed people. Possibly more informed than any of us up here about what's technically going on out there.
Well,
But they got to live there, and it's their property values,
You're not even a real lawyer anymore.
okay?
Yes, sir.
So that is so I would like to ask this board to consider what a lawyer calls as a motion to remand. to the planning commission, and October 19, you come back to us with a majority vote from the meeting of the planning commission on October 19. Am I correct?
I don't know if they can be turned around that fast,
I
but.
don't know what you're asking.
That might be a.
I would be more than glad then to stipulate. I see the ladies nodding their head. If you get a majority vote on the planning commission, I'll stipulate to my yes vote.
But John, it doesn't quite work that way. You can't send something back to the planning commission and say, you know, we're ordering you to approve this.
No, you send it back and you say negotiate, negotiate, compromise, compromise, and come up with a consensus. You always have the threat to go to court and to litigate, always. I mean, I live with that every day. So I think you can work out something where you can get a majority vote on the planning commission. But this piece of paper says you got absolute denial. Okay. And you've got some reasonable people here to talk to who you can work out those compromises with. Thus, it might be acceptable. Okay.
Thank you for your input. We've spent a lot of time compromising already.
Yes, you have. You had, as I said, a year ago, it was almost ludicrous.
The plan that I saw, the 42-lot plan, I said the 42-lot plan that I saw from a year ago, last June.
Yeah, that was
That's
by
a plan
John,
that was-
the former state rep from Livonia.
Yeah, that was,
Bullied his way in here and said, 42 or a charter school.
oh, yeah, whatever. It was an ugly plan.
Do you think I mean, you know.
So that's over with.
Recognize the self-respect of the intellectual honesty of some of the people who are involved here, and I'm talking about Boyd and Warm Beer. And then the planning commission. I happen to have great respect for Dennis Chabalski, our chairman of the planning commission, and Mr. Boyd. And I don't like overruling them.
Okay, so.
So how do you facilitate this?
So what I'm hearing, hold on, would be that we would vote on this tonight. We would send it back to the planning commission with instructions to resolve some of the outstanding aesthetic issues that have been raised tonight.
Well, they also raised the
Please,
issue
please.
of density. The third point was about density, not
Please.
aesthetics.
Well, we didn't talk much about density tonight.
No, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it's
that was
right
one
here,
of
it's
the-
in
Well, I think
density.
aesthetics is going to drive density. If we're
Proposals
looking
too
at-
dense.
So design, building
if-
design.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we can go much further on density. I think the aesthetics is going to drive density. If they can develop a couple, some side entry garages, maybe towards Ridge Road, you know, where people are going to see it, then they can do that.
For
And maybe
me,
tweak
the most
those
important
lots.
thing is getting some step-down housing for people who are longtime residents of this community.
fine with that,
That's
Chuck.
affordable and has a geometry that works for people who don't want to go up and down levels.
All the time.
Yeah.
Ever?
Well, no, that's impossible.
Okay. No, I
Any
mean-
a lot of buildings you enter have levels.
Yeah,
right?
I know, but I'm not trying to be smarty, but I think sometimes if, rather than maybe a full-out two-story unit, maybe have that half unit upper level for guests.
Some creativity that's got to be applied, and the planning commission.
But I'm not sure that's possible because we can't ask for conditions.
That's why I was asking, how do you facilitate this and still maintain leverage with the developer who, human nature, once you get what you want, you're less pliable. So I don't know how to walk that line to make it legal and still accomplish the result.
Well, if we approve
Which we
this,
all want the result, I think even the developer wants the positive result.
but again, if we approve this tonight, it goes back to the planning commission anyway for the cluster housing review. That includes site plan, and that's where all of this can be discussed. Maybe there'll be no agreement, and then that'll be it.
I'm just not real trusting of that based on the prior experience. I'd
Why?
rather.
You got a 5-1 vote or something like that? I mean, so.
It was 5-1, right?
Yeah,
John
so
wasn't there.
it's,
5-1.
yeah, so they're not gonna be bowled over.
No.
Okay, are you receptive to a motion to remand?
Are we going to hear from the public first?
Yeah, we have to. But I'm just concerned about what are this is not a legal proceeding in that we are remanding. What are we remanding? What are we asking the planning commission to do?
Option number 3 in her report, Laura Hawes' report.
The planning commission works for us. They are our representatives.
Option 3 in the report, what did it say? Go back, table and then something.
Table conditional rezoning and request additional information by the applicant if needed.
I think that
Number
happens
4
as
is-
part of the cluster housing.
Number 4 is refer the conditional rezoning back to the planning commission for further consideration, which I think it's a question to the applicant if they're willing to relook at the plans and further have a discussion with the planning commission.
I think that, I think this board should make a decision, because the question before us today is whether to approve the rezoning request. That's the question, and we've drifted away from that. And if we approve the rezoning request, then that means there's going to be, a higher density of housing than is allowed under the current zoning. So the question that everybody ought to be asking themselves are you in favor of approving the rezoning request? Then the rest would follow, the cluster housing option, everything.
Now,
Well, then
my
so-
concern is that you might not get what follows.
Well, but then it dies.
Then it dies.
It comes back to us.
Question fundamentally, are you in favor of rezoning this property or not? That's the question that's being asked.
I would be if we get what we want,
But
with
ultimately,
some options.
you can.
You can't tie the two
can't.
together.
All right, so it's chicken and egg then.
No, because it goes back to the planning commission, and then it's gotta come back to us.
No, if the board approves the rezoning, then it goes to the two-step cluster housing process, in
Yes.
which the step number 1 is working with the planning commission, but step number 2 is it has to come back here.
That's
So
right.
the board's gonna get another bite of
We
the
get a
apple.
second bite of the apple,
But what grounds would you have for rejecting the cluster housing option?
if we don't like it.
We don't like it.
Politicians.
That's not enough, is it?
What
Yeah,
what
it
the
is.
planning,
Based on all
the
this-
planning commission did not recommend to reject the cluster housing option or any of the design of, what the planning commission recommended was that we deny the rezoning request.
Exactly right.
Well, stating it your way, then, as our representative on the plan, I would have to vote no.
Question is, do you want to take a vote on that tonight or not? It's up to you.
Well, I mean, I think we
It
have.
could go to it, let people talk.
I think we got people who want to talk, and we could table it, but then how long do we want to table it? Do we want to wait until
You mean
December?
postpone to another meeting?
Give it a month or two.
What
This is
I'm-
almost right.
No, it's not.
And what
Oh,
will,
it's not?
what will
No, okay.
occur in a month or two? Is
I
it
don't know,
going to
a lot
be
of
looked at
backdoor
again in
discussions,
the
I guess. I
planning?
don't know.
More discussion,
Well-
we've been discussing this,
Well, the developer would have
couple
time
years.
then to maybe think about the architecture and do some noodling with their pencils and the drafting tools.
I think he said he would do that.
I know, but it's
that
gonna take a
will-
while. He's gotta go actually
Okay.
do it.
But then that will not happen in a public forum. That will happen between the developer and Laura.
And still, it comes
That's
back
okay.
to
comes
whether,
back.
because the public pushback, and I am sensitive to the neighbors. I live in that area, and I live in one of those neighborhoods. It doesn't impact me personally, so I don't have any interest in it. But my point is that the pushback from the neighborhoods is that we don't think that you ought to rezone it, and that's what you got to decide.
Why don't you offer that motion then?
But
I'm not
let's wait
offering
until we hear the public.
Okay, so Mr. Developer, I think we're all set for now.
I'd like to hear from the public also. And one of the reasons that we took the denial from the planning commission was quite frankly to access this body to get your
Yeah.
input.
I know, and actually what happened, just a little bit of, adding a little bit of color to it, was that the planning commission considered, or at least somebody floated the idea of tabling it at the planning commission, and you requested that we make a decision
One way
so
or the
that
other.
you could have
That's correct.
your day in court with this board, and it's not court.
And I consider this to be valuable, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think so.
Because
too.
if we move forward with the process and we go ahead with the cluster option, the site planning, we're coming back to you guys.
And you guys, as, you're business people, you need to know whether you're going to move on or whether you're going to move forward.
Right. So let's hear from the public, and
Okay,
I want to thank you for coming down from 42 to 36.
You're welcome.
okay, Mr. Developer, we're good for now. So, folks, if you have any, you see where we're headed with things, I'm not going to deny anybody the opportunity to speak. I just ask that you stay to 3 minutes. It's going to be a race to the podium here. Hey? Now, you have to compliment us on the trees again, okay?
Well,
We're not going to get compliments, I'm
I'm
afraid.
I do have a prepared statement that I'll read, and I will
You get
pass
close.
these out.
Can you get closer to the mic or move it up somehow?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. First, some comments. I support residential development of the tract of land referenced in this petition. The present zoning of R1E per the 2015 master plan would be the best alternative to maintain the character of the homes located west of Ridge Road. Rezoning to R1H could be acceptable, provided the development adhered to the same key fundamental characteristics of the developments east of Ridge Road, including similar lot sizes, similar overall living space, and side-facing garages. The original proposal for 42 homes did not come close to meeting those standards and was rejected by the Board of Trustees. Thank you. In January, a revised proposal for 30 homes was getting close to acceptable, almost meeting the key fundamentals referenced above. The Planning Commission voted to allow the developer to refile prior to the normal 12-month waiting period. However, the 30-home proposal was not brought back to the Planning Commission nor to the trustees for approval. Today's 36-home proposal is a big step backward from that 30-home proposal and still does not approach meeting the key fundamental characteristics of the homes east of Ridge Road. Any development of this parcel must not validate any of the provisions of the consent agreement between the township and Northridge Church. I'm the one that brought that up at the Planning Commission. So questions posed to the commissioners on August 17th, and I'm repeating them here for consideration of the Board of Trustees. Why was the 30-home proposal not brought back to the Planning Commission for approval? Why did the developer increase the latest proposal to 36 homes from 30 homes? Can a 30-home proposal or fewer be resurrected? Regardless of the number of homes, can the developer voluntarily commit that all of the homes will have side-facing garages? And will the sale of the land have any potential legal impact on the consent agreement between the township and Northridge Church? And who will own the retention pond? And will the inclusion of Northridge Church retention pond in calculating the land use in this development have any potential legal impact on the consent agreement?
Thank you.
Okay, please wrap it up.
Yep. So just to be clear, I asked the question and we still have not gotten an answer about the consent agreement. I mean, it's really important to the residents close by that whatever happens, yes or no, and whatever gets built here should not have any impact on that consent agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You do know that this property is not part of the consent
It was
agreement.
not in scope, no, but the
Yeah, but the
retention
retention
pond,
pond, I think, is.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so again, it was a question, so please protect us.
Yeah, I would
on that
be
consent agreement.
astounded if the retention basin is referenced directly or in the consent agreement.
That's probably a good
I
point.
cannot imagine it would get into that level of detail.
And
It's paragraph
just
number 236,
Yeah, really.
section.
Just want to address something else that was raised. The side-facing garages, it's not the aesthetics, it's the property value.
Okay.
Okay?
Understood. Got it.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, anybody else?
And I hate to be
And you
repetitive.
got to speak up and
Yeah, I
get
hate to be
close.
repetitive, but, these meetings have been somewhat going in circles. The same thing comes up over and over and over. My husband and I bought I'm in Plymouth Commons, I'm Cheryl Dove.
Could you give us your name?
Yeah, Cheryl Dove, and I live in Plymouth Commons. My property is adjacent to this land, okay? We bought our property over 30 years ago, and at that time, it was a pumpkin patch. My husband and I went over to the planning commission, and they assured us that this property would be developed just like ours. And that was one of the reasons we moved to Plymouth Township. We like the big lots, the beautiful houses, side garages. In our association rules, you cannot have a forward-facing garage. You're limited to certain colors. There's restrictions on what we can do in our subdivision. So we were expecting this land to be developed like ours. Well, then the church bought the property, and we went, of course, all those that consent judgment with the church. They were limited to parking spaces, events. It's all in that agreement. And I do believe I have copies of it. I know that there's something about the retention. Ridge Road has actually flooded several times where those retention plans are. The state of Michigan came out and declared part of that land as a watershed, which you never see in these plans. That aside from what the church, because the church needs those big retention plans for just the size of that property. So at any rate, when the Mormon church decided to sell the property, my neighbors and I talked about buying it because, we're thinking, this is Plymouth Township, it's beautiful. How about a nice park? And my husband and I were going to build a park back there with trails. I have deer in my backyard every day. We have all these beautiful animals that live on that land back there. And then all of a sudden, the church owned the property. And it was a parking lot thing, but the consent judgment did not allow them, and they had agreed to that consent judgment. It didn't allow them more parking spaces. So, anyway, and just a quickie, because my neighbors have noted that their backyards already flood from that property, So it's putting more houses back there is just going to make our water problem. But we really want our neighborhood to preserve our property values. And there is a lot of traffic on Ridge already, especially when there's a holiday or Sundays or something like that. There's a lot of traffic on Ridge Road, and that's what we want.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Anyone else?
Is Ridge Road paved into Canton there, or is it gravel?
No, it terminates right at Ann Arbor Road where Picnic Basket is, and then it becomes a dirt road because it's a natural heritage road of some
Ridge
sort.
is ever paved south into Canton Township, the traffic will explode.
You voted no. Okay.
Well, I know there are several residents on that stretch of ridge that want it paved because they are mad about the dust and debris.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
Mr. Boyd.
Since my name's been taken in
You need
vain several times here.
You need to speak up. You have a very low voice. Get that as close to you as possible and give us some volume.
Jerry, I practiced that, but apparently I'm still not there.
That thing
Okay,
attached to the
I'm
podium
Tim
or no?
Boyd,
It's not.
49020 Fox Drive South.
He's good.
Good evening, Commissioners. Some of you are aware that I am on the Planning Commission, but I want to be clear tonight that I'm speaking to you solely on my own behalf, not on behalf of the Planning Commission. I'm a 30-year resident of Fox Point subdivision located directly east of the subject property. Seen multiple proposals over the last 3 decades, and I really hope that the 30-lot proposal, which wasn't really referenced in the materials tonight, but this was a proposal that the developer brought forward to the Planning Commission at our January meeting. I really had hopes that the 30-lot proposal was the way that with some additional clarifications, we could actually get to an agreement that would at least come close to balancing all the interests that people have in this property, including the church. As background, I've often thought that a possible solution might work through this piece of land would be to effectively split the property so that the portions of Plymouth Commons would be similar in home size and lot size to the R1E development there, while the remainder of the homes would be similar in home size, lot size, and character to all the R1H homes that are east of Ridge Road and abut to this development on that side. Unfortunately, that was not to be. The 30-lot proposal in January actually came close to what I was envisioning, but it needed some additional work. But that's not to be because they've not come forward. They never took action on the 30-home proposal. It's now 36 homes. Unfortunately, the latest applicant's request for 36 lots includes a significant portion of the property with these 70-foot lots that are up there. That compares to the 90-foot lots that were on that piece of the property in the January proposal. Now, if we use the homes in Fox Point to the east as representative of most of the R1H homes in that piece of Plymouth Township, we can do some comparisons based on what the developer told us in the planning commission meeting last month. The first thing is that the lot size of these up here would be only 2/3 of the lot size of the R1H homes to the east. The square footage of these homes would be roughly 75% plus or minus of the R1H homes to the east. And the asking price, as of the August Planning Commission discussion, was about 75% of the homes to R1H to the east. So the product that's being proposed for those lots along that part is clearly different than the R1E homes to the east of that piece of land. And unfortunately, then that doesn't kind of meet my own vision of how we can reach a compromise. I want to talk about the side entry garages because anybody who watched knows that I'm a big advocate of side entry garages. Let me explain. There are, over the last 30 years, if we look at homes in western Plymouth Township that are south of M14 and west of Beck Road, there are 13 single-family detached home subdivisions and only one subdivision that allows front entry garages. All those other 13 require side entry garages. If we even go east of Beck, there's another 5 subdivisions that were built in the same period of time with the same restrictions on side entry garages. Clearly, side entry garages have a benefit to the developers and to the people that live in these subdivisions. And I presume they have some benefit to Plymouth Township, or otherwise you guys wouldn't have insisted on all of those subdivisions over the last 30 years having side entry garages. So moving back to the proposal in front of us, according to the applicant, these 70-foot lots along the northern portion would have front entry garages. This is a departure from the environment on the remainder of the far west Plymouth Township that I personally have an issue with. I also wanted to point out on page 54 of the packet tonight that those images of the homes were not representative of the homes that would be along this piece. They would be smaller and they would have front entry garages. Now, I take no pleasure in making these points, but if we're going to grant a conditional rezoning for this property, I think we have every right to insist on certain conditions to deliver a specific result. I wrote a note to Mr. Ison recently and said that I thought with the 30-home proposal, we were getting close to something that could actually get us to the answer we wanted. And I was really disappointed that where we stood after the August Planning Commission meeting. I still feel that way. I think if we had a way of ensuring with the developer that we could make some progress on some of these issues, to meet side entry garages, but some of the other issues that have been raised tonight, I would be more amenable. In other words, I still think there's a possibility we can get to the right answer. We're not there yet. Anyway, thank you for listening to me, and I hope we can find something. I just hope we can find something more. Thank you.
I have a question. Can somebody show me the R1E homes that are on the east side of Ridge Road? I can't place them in my mind.
I don't know of any.
I thought you said there was.
I think you misspoke.
No, it's R1H, all.
Oh, excuse me, R1H, sorry, R1H. R1H. In the.
Are you talking about Fox Point?
Pardon me?
Fox Point is R1H?
Yes, it is. Yep, as is Deer Creek, Hunters Creek.
Yeah.
It said in the planner's report, it says to the east is Laura R1H. So is that
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's correct.
east, one family residential, and that is Fox Point?
Yes, and other homes like, other subdivisions like that. Hunters Creek, Deer Creek.
Okay, I guess with the risk of sounding stupid, so why can't we emulate what was on the east side?
What is the distinction then? I guess I'm not following between the E and the H.
The E is essentially, it's low density is the official definition, and it's like Plymouth Commons. East of Ridge is low to medium density, and that's all of these subdivisions over here. So for instance, our lots are 100 feet wide in Fox Point mostly. I think in Plymouth Commons, they're more like 125 to 150 feet wide,
Yeah.
as an example.
And they're R1H.
No, they're R1E. Plymouth Commons is R1E.
Yeah, Commons,
You
no,
have
but
this,
Fox Point.
this.
Yeah.
Is R1H.
So, but the H designation allows you to also do the cluster housing.
You can do cluster housing in both.
Or you could do the 30. I'm assuming that the 30 didn't have the cluster housing in
I
it?
believe it still did, yes.
Still be cluster.
Oh, okay. So you have both options.
It wasn't brought forward. 30 wasn't brought forward
Yeah,
for consideration.
what happened was they brought it to the planning commission in January to get permission from the planning commission to come back with a new proposal
Right.
for the 1 year. Excuse me.
Hey, you're paying for that.
Sign me up. Thank you. They were coming back to get permission to come forward with another proposal before the 1 year had expired from what you guys projected last year, which we granted them based on that proposal.
Okay.
Thank you all for listening to me.
All right, anybody else?
Good evening, Mike Warmbier. I am also in Fox Point, 48951 Fox Point. I had a few things that I wanted to go through here, kind of just short and sweet, trying to touch on some of what I believe to be more of the black and white points. But after hearing some of the things that I've heard, I'm going to go through and just make a few comments, notes that I jotted down through listening to your discussions.
Hold it a second. Are you a Purdue graduate engineer?
Not an engineer.
Okay.
Did Purdue, but
Yes.
not an engineer.
Okay.
One of the first things that I keep asking myself, so first of all, I moved to Plymouth in 1971 as a little kid with my mom and dad. I left after high school and didn't move back to Plymouth until 8 years ago. So I've only been back, or 7 years ago, a little over 7 years now. And that's where I purchased Fox Point. But one of the first things that I have to ask myself over and over again, and it's been brought up here today, why is nobody asking some of these questions? I have spoken directly with Northridge. They're not looking to sell this property. They have developers that approach them regularly because the property may be appealing to develop. But Northridge, they're doing fine financially. There's no for sale sign out there. They're doing better today than they have in many years. They're not looking actively to sell this. And I would ask each and every one of you to reach out to them and ask them, and I bet you'll get the same answer that I got when I first asked. Secondly, I've heard over and over again tonight, a developer presented their best plan. A developer presented their best plan. I heard that 3 times tonight. Each time it was a different number of houses. How many best plans are there with, what is it, 72? Is it 42? Is it 36? Is it 30? Is it 28? I mean, but my point is, over the last X number of years, and I don't know how many years you want to go back, the best plan has had a different number of homes each time. When are we going to get a best plan? When do you finally just say, I'm done? When do you say, I'm trying to put a square peg into a round hole? How many more one shots is the trustee board going to give a developer? This is not a negotiating board. We're here to make decisions. We're not ready to send things back. Why do we send things back all the time? We're bouncing back and forth. It was said earlier tonight. It's almost as if this board became a Supreme Court. And then something that I heard earlier, I just wanted to get my vote through the Planning Commission. I didn't care if it failed so that I could come talk to the trustees. That's just silly.
That's not what he was saying.
But no, not what you said. But I mean, I heard the developers say that they just wanted to get that vote and they were okay with losing so they could get their time here. And I think, and I don't want to put words in the mouth, but I think I heard that earlier. That was very specifically stated as such. And then, the other thing is, we talk about Plymouth Township needs single family, or for empty nesters. We need places for our residents to age in place and so forth. We're talking, let's just say for whatever reason this gets through, we're talking 36. How many residential homes are in Plymouth Township? Is 36 going to solve our problem? I don't think so. Again, we're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. And then I also heard the church property may not be the best location for more expensive homes. I mean, because of the parking lot, because of the church. Maybe it's just too expensive, and we really shouldn't even be thinking about trying to build what it is that's being proposed. And again, the other thing too, I'm sitting here listening to all of this. I've got quite a bit of experience in your chair as well. And I'm sitting here listening, and I have a hard time understanding, why are we talking about all the designing, the architectural, the styling? Trustee Kermey mentioned that earlier. We're talking about all this stuff. This is a trustee board. We're here to answer one question tonight. Trustee Dorschowitz said it best all night long. We're here to answer one question. Will you approve the rezoning? It's a yes or it's a no. That's it. I've got 15 years of experience in township politics. It started with the zoning board, chair of the zoning board, planning commission, chair of the planning commission, and trustee. And I've also gone through the Michigan State University Citizen Planner Program, of which was a huge benefit. And if it's still available, I would suggest you guys have all the planners or the planning commission go through that as well. I've been in multiple planning commission meetings, and
Can we wrap this up? Seriously, I've given you way more time, and
how much time did the
I'm not
developer
really
have? 3
fascinated
minutes?
by your biography.
Did the developer have 3 minutes, or
gave you-
am I allowed to keep going? Or
No,
am I
because
gonna
he's
be
the
coming up?
applicant, I gave the last gentleman way more time than he was
Okay.
allotted, so please wrap it up.
All right, I will do
Or
that.
send us your resume, and we'll look at it.
You've got it.
Yeah, I know.
So I guess I'll end with this. The trustees, you as trustees obviously realize that you've got the authority and the ability to override the planning commission, but the planning commission has one charter, and that is to protect the welfare, the health, and the safety of the residents. Trying to figure out a way for a developer to make more money is not a piece of that. So your decision tonight is to decide whether you're going to rezone or not. And if the answer is yes, you're going to rezone, then it comes back to, did the planning commission make the wrong decision on behalf of the clients? And I guess if you choose to move in that direction, I'd like to know why you think that.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else? One more person here.
I can be very brief. My name's John Grozowski. I live in Fox Point. My wife and I moved there about 7 years ago. We raised our 5 kids in Canton on Cranberry Drive, and we wanted to upgrade. We were doing better financially, and we thought it would be nicer for the family to have a nicer home. So we moved into Fox Point, and I will say on Cranberry, it was a high-density front entry garages, and we thought we were moving to the west side of Plymouth to kind of get away from that look, because we wanted just a more spacious look and move and upgrade it in our property. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, board, what's your pleasure?
Call the question on rezoning?
You're out of order. Calling the question is not in order.
So just to clarify one more time, the subdivision east of what's in question here is an R1H. So this doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be taking the subdivision and developing it. This is just the rezoning, or it's just the rezoning for them.
It's just the rezoning for this area that I'm highlighting right here.
Yeah, no, I know that. I'm saying, but is it like being allotted to them for the rezoning to do their development, or will it just be rezoned and then tabled and open to any other developers?
It will be rezoned for the purpose of the next step, which is the cluster housing option, which then has to go back to the planning commission at which point they have to work that out with the planning commission, then it comes back to us.
I think
I
you're
think the
saying
question's
it should run with the
different.
land.
If,
Is
yeah,
that what
once
you're
it's
asking?
Does it run with the
rezoned,
land
it's
forever?
The
rezoned.
developer
Yeah, it runs
is.
with the land. No, it's rezoned.
It's conditional.
Oh, it is conditional.
It is
you're
conditional.
Well, Laura, let's,
It's conditional for the developer.
Yeah.
Well, let's let the experts tell us. That's a key word, conditional. We haven't done one of these. I don't ever remember one. Conditional.
We did one.
so let's, Laura, do you want to tackle that one right now?
Does it run with the land?
Forever.
So typically with the rezoning, it does run with the land. It's a
Normal.
permanent change. This though, since it's conditional, the applicant has 2 years or else it's void.
Right,
Doesn't
we
run with the
talked
land.
about that.
Right, it's the very essence of the word conditional. I mean,
But
a
if-
condition precedent has to happen before they get the final approval, right?
Right.
Correct. If the applicant doesn't follow through with the construction, then the parcel is rezoned back to its current classification.
But if they began the construction and they met that condition within 2 years and then, something unfortunate happened and they had to abandon the project, would it run to whoever the subsequent owner of that property was?
That
or
that
if
I'm
they
unsure. I'd
sold
have
it?
to.
Like what happened with?
Well, Kevin,
what was
this
that,
is
Tuscany Hills?
this is a conditional rezoning agreement, which is a contract. It's a 6-page contract. I mean,
Between specific
this is between
parties.
us and the
Yeah.
developer.
Yeah.
Correct?
That specific development.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only one that has privity.
The
is
privity.
us.
So to answer
That's the word I
so
was
to
trying
answer
to-
Jen's
privity
question,
contract.
this does not run with the land in perpetuity. It is
Right.
Short-term,
2 years between us and the developer.
One thing has to be made clear, I don't like using the word contract here. It's a condition because contract zoning is a distinct
Okay,
concept.
fair enough.
Yes.
That's the law.
So these would be conditions that are imposed upon this applicant. And if the applicant fulfills the conditions set forth in what they propose, then it will run with the land. If they don't, then it reverts.
Say one more time that last.
Once they fulfill the condition, it triggers it, and then it runs with the land after
Yes.
that point. That's the triggering of that.
For the benefit of the developer.
No, but then he can sell it.
If he sold it to, or he went, let's say if
Bankrupt.
he went bankrupt, and another developer came in, since he's already started the project and he's
Then it
met
would
the
run.
condition, it runs with the.
They would assume that property subject to the conditions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That means that only after the permits have been issued, building
The
permits?
2-year provision, whatever that was.
If the conditions require commencement of construction within 2 years, or the property, or the conditions are null and void, then the conditional rezoning is null and void. And it would go
So
back
one
to the
shovel in the
original
ground.
zoning designation.
And then I had one other comment, question in regards to the Northridge sale of the land. He brought up an interesting point. I'm sorry, sir, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Warmbier?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Are you suggesting that, I don't know if I can ask him a question after.
I think it's.
Is he
I
suggesting that the
don't think it's
developer is
appropriate.
pressuring
You can ask us, you
Northridge?
can ask us the question.
Yeah, do you guys feel that the developer is pressuring the church to sell?
We would have no knowledge.
Yeah, we don't
That's-
No.
That's
I'm
not,
sorry.
we're not
This is-
part of
no,
that transaction.
No, you've had your time. This is not that's a business decision between the church and the
Whomever.
developer. Okay, so I can tell you from my personal experience, I've been involved in this now since 2016. They purchased that land for the purpose of putting in a parking lot. That was denied. So now they don't need the land and they are looking to unload it. It's a liability for them.
They paying
We don't
property
know.
tax
It's a
on this
private
one?
I have met with representatives of the church. With your other developments, I mean, this is a private property rights issue between them and the developer.
Yeah, we're not,
No, sir, you're out of order, stop it, you are out of order. This is our meeting, it's not your meeting, okay? Go back to Western Michigan, you can have all the meetings you want, okay? Thank you, sir, you're out of line. So anyway, that's a long answer to your question. Okay, what's your preference?
Boxing me into a no.
No, we're not, I'm
No,
not. Somebody make a motion.
Okay, want me to make a motion? I want a motion to deny it then.
Okay, then make the motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to deny, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded.
Okay.
So the motion is to deny.
Motion by Kermy.
Seconded by Buckley.
Buckley.
Take the roll.
Okay,
So a yes vote is to deny.
correct, that's what it means. Trustee Stewart,
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
No.
Treasurer Dorchevitz,
Yes.
Trustee Monahan,
No.
Trustee Kermy,
Yes.
Trustee Buckley,
Yes.
Clerk Borba, no. Motion carries.
Okay.
What was it? What
4
was
to
the
3?
count?
4 to 3.
4 to 3.
Okay. Sayonara. Okay, let's see, what's next? Public comment on any other non-Northridge issue? Okay. All right, let's move on to board comment. Trustee Buckley.
Hang on the spot here. I just want to thank the public for when they come out and make comments. I really put a lot of value in what the public has to say. And I can say in this, situation and other situations, it has held very high value for me. So thank you. Keep coming back and giving us your perspective. Appreciate it.
Trustee Stewart.
I want to thank our new police chief. He certainly has brought an enhanced professionalism, and I support his goals. I want to thank Officer Szymanski and Chalmers for their presence in Lake Point in a car at your direction, Chief. We have some positive dates to look forward to in the public, October 9th, October 22nd, and November 11th, and I will report more to the board about that. And I've waited for a long time for a chief like you. Thank you.
Bob.
I liked our old chief, too. I like you, but I liked our old chief, too. Tax day was September 14th. We've collected about 98% of the payments, and so, which is on par with previous years, so people are paying their taxes.
Cool. Mr. Clerk,
Yes.
how's election season going?
Election season is here, folks. Tomorrow, we will be mailing out a little over 6,000 ballots that have been requested so far. There are, a little over 11,000 applications that were out. So of the ones that came back, 6,000 of them we are mailing tomorrow. Also, starting tomorrow, anybody can come in person and fill out an application or bring in an application they already have, and we will give them a ballot over the counter. They can take that home and vote it. They can vote it here and deposit it in the box if they want to. And also, those of you who are getting your ballots this early, if you know how you're going to vote, if you would please go ahead and vote that and return it to us, it makes it a lot easier on the staff as opposed to waiting to the last minute to have thousands of ballots come into us. And it makes it very difficult to process all those in an orderly fashion. So I'm not telling you to hurry up and vote, but if you know how you want to vote, get them back to us as soon as possible. You can mail them back to us. We have a drop box out front, which is monitored 24/7 by the police department. We have a drop box inside, and then you just come in and just hand it to us if you wish. So the election season is upon us. I want to thank all of my staff for working very hard and getting all those ballots out so far. So thank you very much.
Okay, Audrey.
I too, like John said, I want to thank everyone for coming out. We may not always agree, but it's certainly a privilege to hear your thoughts and your concerns, because we're all in this together. So thank you, and thank you, board. I think we saw, a good, healthy discussion up here. We're not just a board that's rubber stamps things. I think that's important to know. And lastly, I want to thank you for the fire department for our T-shirts, for the breast
That's from
awareness.
from the union.
The union, thank you, for the Breast Awareness Month.
Yes, for breast
Yes.
cancer awareness.
Breast cancer awareness. Lost my mother-in-law to that, so thank you very much. I appreciate that.
It's my favorite color.
Mr. Kermy.
I encourage everyone to vote in person at the polls. But do we have any information from the CSX Railroad relating to the overpass? Any communication? What was the date of the last communication we had with them?
That's a tricky question. I don't know.
Laura, have they
Can't answer
contacted
that
you? Or you contacted them, or?
We've had pretty much continuous communication with them about a number of different things. Like we've met out there and talked about the spalling concrete and the painting and the overpass for the sidewalk. So,
condition of the bridge, I mean,
But the needle hasn't really moved for them.
well, no, I would say we are in agreement on what is required for the permit to go underneath. And we're in agreement as to what can happen as far as painting the abutment walls and what can happen as far as landscaping.
Oh, so we do have some partial agreements.
We do, yeah.
Good to hear that.
I mean, unfortunately, the appearance and condition of the bridge is still terrible. I mean, it's an 80-plus-year-old bridge, and, you know, when we asked them if they could, we'd be willing to work with them to make it look better, but
Well, painting will make it look better in landscaping.
They claim there's no structural issues,
Yeah.
even though we've seen concrete fall off of it. We pointed all that out to them. They sent their own structural engineer and said there's no problems.
Yeah. Even though
Well,
there's
structurally, there probably isn't. But,
big cracks in it.
yeah, but cracks don't mean it's structurally unsound. So it just is ugly looking and maybe dangerous for falling concrete.
It's all good until you get hit by the falling concrete.
So maybe they have to put up
They
some
think it's gonna-
wire, fencing to hold the concrete.
We've gone through a number of options with them. They continue to say there's no problems and they don't have to do anything because we don't have jurisdiction over them because they're the railroad.
Right. They were here first and
Yeah.
Interstate Commerce Clause.
Yep.
All right. Any update on sidewalk repair program? What % done are you?
I think we have 2 weeks left, so we're about 60% done. It's been going fairly well, though. They've been removing sidewalk with less damage to the grass and replacing it usually the same day they remove it.
Okay.
And are we going, speaking of sidewalk repair, will we have the invoices in time for the tax season?
How would I know?
Well, that's, no, that's your job. That's your job. So let's, when do you expect to have all of the sign off on the remediation? What date?
So 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, we'll be done. We're actually tracking them as we go. Everything's in GIS, so you can see it as it's completed, as it's removed, as it's replaced. And then we generate the assessment list directly from that and send it to Bob.
Can you make
So if
it?
we have that, if it's timely, then we can make it.
What's your drop dead date is the point I'm getting
I
at.
don't know, I haven't looked at it.
Because from a cash flow standpoint, you'd like those invoices to be out as soon as possible.
Would,
And to get on, you only can get it on the tax bill once a year, right?
correct, winter.
So that's why it's critical to get it on the December 1 tax bill, especially with interest rates moving up, because we have to carry the money.
Yeah, it is. It won't be hard to do as long as we have the data. It's a simple import.
Good, I hope we work towards making that deadline so Jeremy, please make it happen, so that he has the information for invoicing.
Will do.
Okay. So we have 3 board meetings in the month of October. So we're going to have a special meeting next Tuesday. And the only reason why it's special is because we may be voting on a variety of things. One thing we know for sure we're going to be doing is the 2023 board schedule. So think about that. It's typically the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. We're going to you'll see it's not perfect. We've moved some things around, and like we have one meeting in August, et cetera. We'll have the economic development update, the annual economic development update with Gary Heitman and Laura Haw. We'll have the Ginger Moriarty will be here for the general budget presentation. We may have some PUD amendments for St. John's Resort, and maybe the Pulte is looking to build condos on Sheldon Road, just north of the Hilton Gardens site, on what is currently St. John's Resort property. They're not building anything on the golf course. These would all be on Sheldon Road. Of course, they're very high density and ugly and all that. No, I'm not saying, don't quote me on that. But anyway, they'll be looking for a petition PUD on that. And then we'll be doing the water and sewer budget, the transportation budget, and the trash budget on October 11th. On October 11th, we'll also be looking at a closed session on various labor issues. On October 25th, that is our mandatory budget hearing, so you'll be doing the notice on that. We'll have the Plymouth Walk brownfield plan. Plymouth Walk is the Elks Lodge project. Let's see, possibly contracts with the TPOAM, our clerical union, and the Teamsters who represent our DPW staff. And then our Great Lakes Water Authority contract renewal, which Bob and I and Director Felrath have been working on that for the last couple weeks. And then we only have 2 more meetings after that, November 15th and December 13th. So the legislative year at least is coming to a quick end.
All right, a couple of comments on schedule.
Yeah.
November 15th is the firearms deer season opening day.
Yeah.
For the next, can you not make it that week? Don't have a meeting that week, or do something? And then the other one is
we're stuck
for schedule of next April or whenever we have MTA. We always have a meeting on that Tuesday. Let's back it off, especially Bob has proposed, training and stuff, that $1,900. Let's use that resource of MTA so we don't have to run back here.
Yeah.
For the MTA conference, or from the MTA conference.
Where is it this year?
I don't know.
I think it might be
Traverse,
Grand
I've been
Traverse.
contacted, Traverse City, commencing April 17th.
So with respect to November 15th, though, that's a little bit more urgent, and I don't know if any of us are you like some avid hunter that I didn't know?
Well, I'm not avid, but I'd like to take that day and be in the woods.
Okay.
Yeah, my husband will be out of town for 3 days, but.
Yeah, here's the problem, Chuck, and I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but the Tuesday before is Election Day.
Right.
Yeah. We can't meet that night. The 15th is the week before Thanksgiving, then we have Thanksgiving week, and people are gonna be disappearing that week, so. Maybe we could do a Monday night on the 14th, but we're pretty limited.
Well, I'm thinking of next year's schedule.
Oh, okay.
Well, this year would be great, but next year, for sure, we need to do something with MTA.
Oh, yeah, well, we can sure talk about that.
And then I have one other item. Are you guys gonna be able to humor me with the change log for the constantly changing St. John's PUD so we can have good tracking? You're an engineer, you know what a change log is. And 5 years from now, we're not going to know what we changed. We've already had, I think, 3 changes, and I can't remember what they were. So it would really be helpful to have a change log for you as the planner, the attorney, and future boards.
So the good news for November of 2023 is that hunting season, November 15th, is a Wednesday night, and so we could meet on the 14th, and then you can go in the woods. Or we could have a special meeting on the 7th, because there's no elections next year.
There's some deer out the back of my window here that.
Yeah, that's probably Bambi's brother.
And there's turkeys all over town too, as we know. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Stewart, supported by Mr. Forva. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.